Imagine liquidating $8 billion of stock in Microsoft, like a company you've believed in for a decade, all because of a single, seemingly minor new feature added to Microsoft Word.
Yeah, it sounds completely crazy.
Right. But today we're looking at how a tiny change at your desk is triggering a $1 trillion earthquake across the entire tech industry. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So we're using Aaron Rose's Tech Reader AI Digest from Friday, May 8, 2026, to really map out this massive chain reaction that's happening right now. And the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how the software you use every single day, to write emails and build spreadsheets is suddenly the front line of a financial war. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, the scale of this is wild.
Yeah.
Because tech news usually feels so distant. It's usually about like massive server farms in the desert or some abstract algorithmic theory.
Totally.
But today is entirely about the very specific tools you are probably using to do your job today. I mean, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook.
The basics.
Right. The mundane software ecosystem that practically runs the modern corporate world is being, well, fundamentally rewired.
And that walled garden just got breached. The digest highlights that Anthropic's AI model, Claude, is now generally available as a direct add-in for Microsoft 365.
Which is a huge shift.
It really is. It's on Windows, Mac, the web. Anyone with a Claude Max, Pro, Enterprise, or Team subscription can just grab it from the Microsoft Marketplace.
Oh, and Outlook is in public beta, too. But the feature that's turning the industry upside down is something called cross-app context continuity.
What's fascinating here is the architectural philosophy behind how they built this. Because to understand why it's such a big deal, you really have to look at how Microsoft built their own native AI, Copilot.
Right.
Microsoft fundamentally treats each application as an isolated container. So you open Word and you talk to the Word AI. You open Excel, you talk to the Excel AI.
They don't talk to each other. Exactly. They're essentially walled off from each other. But Anthropic completely bypassed that sandboxed approach. They built Claude to act as a single, continuous, hovering layer across your entire workflow.
I was trying to wrap my head around this earlier, and the best analogy I could come up with is having an assistant who suffers from severe amnesia.
That's actually a great way to put it.
Like in the old system, you'd ask an AI to summarize a long email thread in Outlook. Then you'd open PowerPoint to make a slide about it, and the AI sitting in the PowerPoint would essentially say, who are you and what are we talking about?
Right, you'd have to start all over.
Exactly. You re-upload the data, re-explain the prompt. But with Claude's continuity feature, the AI just follows me. Wait, so I can summarize an email in Outlook, move to Word to write a doc, jump to PowerPoint for a deck, and then hit Excel for the data, and the AI just remembers everything without me having to copy-paste or re-explain the task.
That is the exact user experience.
How does Microsoft's own Copilot even compete with that?
Well, the short answer is, right now it struggles to. The AI maintains a persistent memory state across the different applications. And from a competitive standpoint, you really have to consider the cost.
Right, because Copilot isn't cheap.
Not at all. Microsoft charges $30 per user per month for Copilot.
Yeah.
And they just added their own agentic features back on April 22nd to try and, justify that price tag.
Yeah.
But if a company's already paying for Claude for their employees, they get this overarching integration without paying Microsoft an extra $30 a head.
Which is a brilliant wedge into the market. But Anthropic didn't just design this for the person typing the document, right? The digest points out a huge push for IT departments, specifically mentioning OpenTelemetry support. I see that word thrown around a lot. Break down what OpenTelemetry actually does in this context.
Think of OpenTelemetry like a standardized flight data recorder for software.
Okay.
In the past, if an AI agent was digging through corporate files, the IT administrators had very little visibility into the specific steps the AI was taking. It was a black box.
Which IT hates.
Absolutely. So OpenTelemetry creates a transparent, universal standard for logging every single action. IT admins can see exactly which APIs are being called, how much compute each user is consuming, and they can trace the AI's path through their systems in real time. It gives control back to the enterprise.
So it's not a black box anymore. But what about the actual data? Because if I'm a massive healthcare provider or a bank, my biggest fear is my proprietary data leaving my secure network to get processed on some unknown server.
And that brings us to the data routing feature, which is really the masterstroke here.
Yeah.
Anthropic allows organizations to route all of this Claude traffic through the secure cloud environments they already use.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if an enterprise has a massive secure contract with Amazon Bedrock, Google Cloud Vertex AI, or Microsoft Foundry, they can force Claude to process everything through those specific trusted pipelines.
So it's like having a secure internal pneumatic tube system for your corporate mail rather than like handing sensitive documents to a public postal worker. The data never leaves the compliance bubble the company has already paid billions to secure.
It solves the data residency headache overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And the market is validating this aggressively.
Mm.
I mean, the launch partners for this integration aren't startups.
Right.
They are Citadel, ServiceNow, Deloitte, and BCI. These are heavy-hitting institutions where data compliance is literally a matter of federal law.
That makes total sense. So let's follow that thread to the broader financial impact. Because if an outside AI like Claude is hovering over Microsoft's suite, doing a better job connecting the apps than Microsoft's own native tools, I mean, that is a massive structural crack in Microsoft's core business.
It's an existential threat.
Yeah. And Wall Street didn't just take notes on this, they took immediate action.
They moved billions.
Yeah, the digest details a massive stock dump by Sir Christopher Hahn's hedge fund, TCI Fund Management. They took their Microsoft position, which was a massive 10% of their entire portfolio, and slashed it to just 1%.
Which is a huge move.
They liquidated nearly $8 billion in Microsoft shares. But here's where it gets really interesting. Microsoft is an absolute titan. They practically own the enterprise cloud with Azure.
Right.
Surely one clever AI integration from Anthropic doesn't sink an $8 billion investment from a fund manager who historically holds onto stocks for an average of 9 years. I mean, why panic now?
We connect this to the bigger picture. You have to read the reasoning in the letter TCI sent to its investors.
Mm-hmm.
TCI was incredibly clear that this was not a momentum trade. They aren't trying to just time a temporary dip in the stock market.
Okay.
This is a fundamental shift in their core thesis about the future of the technology sector. TCI believes that AI is on the verge of completely disrupting established office workflows.
And Office is effectively a global corporate tax. Like every business on Earth pays it.
It's the most durable, reliable revenue stream in software history. TCI's argument is that if AI allows entirely new productivity platforms to emerge, or if an outside AI layer like Claude becomes the primary way we interact with documents, then the traditional Microsoft Office suite becomes commoditized.
It just becomes the plumbing.
Exactly. It becomes just a dumb storage container while the AI does the actual work.
Mm-hmm.
And if Office loses its dominance, it poses a direct, adjacent risk to Azure because so much of Azure's growth is tied to that broader Microsoft ecosystem.
So an $8 billion bet was taken off the table. Where did they put the chips?
They moved that capital directly to Alphabet, Google's parent company. TCI increased their Alphabet stake from 3% to 5%, making it their largest tech position.
Wow.
Yeah, and that specific move actually pushed Alphabet's market cap up to $4.8 trillion.
They are closing in on NVIDIA, which is what, sitting around $5.1 trillion right now?
Very close, yeah.
But why Google? If Microsoft is vulnerable, why is Alphabet the safe harbor?
It comes down to hardware and vertical integration. See, Microsoft relies heavily on renting standard graphics processing units, or GPUs, from outside partners to run their AI.
Okay.
But TCI is placing a massive bet on Google's proprietary TPU infrastructure. TPUs, or tensor processing units, are custom microchips that Google designed from scratch specifically to do AI math. They are application-specific.
So they don't have to rent from anyone else.
Exactly. TCI believes that owning the custom silicon, owning the data centers, and owning the underlying models gives Google a structural cost advantage that Microsoft simply doesn't have.
Aaron Rose points out a sharp irony in the digest that I couldn't stop thinking about. On the exact same day that TCI publicly cites AI disruption to Office as their reason to exit, Claude literally launches its continuous AI presence inside Microsoft Office.
Yeah, the timing is almost too perfect to be an accident. You have a massive financial player broadcasting the theory of disruption, and simultaneously the literal tool meant to cause that disruption goes live.
It's wild.
And TCI isn't standing alone on this ledge either. The digest notes that other major institutional players, like Tiger Global and the Duquesne family office, have also actively been cutting their Microsoft exposure. Plus, recent earnings reports show Google Cloud growing at a staggering 63%, completely eclipsing Azure's 40% growth.
It feels like a pincer movement. Microsoft is under siege from rival products taking over their user interface, and they are losing the faith of major long-term institutional investors.
Yeah, the pressure is immense.
In a normal ecosystem, you'd expect Microsoft to rally their biggest ally, OpenAI, to help fight off this threat. But OpenAI isn't in a position to help. They are entirely distracted because their internal dirty laundry is currently being aired in a federal courtroom.
OpenAI.
The contrast between the software advancements we just talked about and the human drama here is striking.
It really is. To give everyone a quick recap, week one was honestly not a great look for Elon Musk. He faced several contradictions on the stand, like he claimed he donated $1 billion to OpenAI, but the records showed only $38 million.
Right, a huge gap there.
Yeah. And he was cornered into admitting to distillation practices at his own AI company, xAI.
Which is a crucial technical point. Distillation is essentially taking the outputs of a massive, expensive model like GPT-4 and using that data to train your own smaller, cheaper model.
Oh, gotcha.
It's basically like copying the smart kid's homework to pass the test without doing the reading. It completely undercuts his argument about building models safely from the ground up.
Exactly. So week one was rough for Musk's case, but week two pivoted entirely. It stopped being about Musk's inconsistencies and became deeply, permanently damaging to OpenAI's leadership narrative.
This raises an important question about corporate mythology versus documented reality. Because what we saw in week two wasn't just typical courtroom posturing. It was a systematic dismantling of how OpenAI presents itself.
As this benevolent, safety-focused organization.
Right. And the damage came from 5 independent voices. These were not Elon Musk's allies. These were people intimately familiar with OpenAI's inner workings.
Let's run through that roster, because the testimonies were brutal. We saw the presentation of the Sutskever dossier. We had Rosie Campbell testifying in detail about the internal safety teams being quietly disbanded.
Yeah, that was heavy.
And then Tasha McCauley took the stand under oath and described a culture of deceit. She actually confirmed that OpenAI's board of directors was not informed before ChatGPT was launched to the public.
Wait, the board wasn't told?
Let that sink in for a moment. Launching the single most consequential consumer technology product of the decade, a product that changed the global economy, and the board of directors found out at the same time as the general public.
That's insane.
It speaks to a profound breakdown in governance. You also had Mira Murati testifying about leadership deliberately creating chaos, and David Schuser providing a devastating analysis of how they completely failed their mandate as a nonprofit organization. But I want to push back on the Musk angle for a second, because he isn't exactly emerging as a champion of pure safety here either. Under oath, Musk was asked directly if Tesla has concrete plans for AGI, artificial general intelligence. He answered no.
Right.
Which directly contradicts a very public post he made on X just 2 months ago, on March 4th, implying the exact opposite. So Musk's claim that he's doing this out of a deep concern for humanity's safety, rather than just wanting control, is completely falling apart. But the real victim here isn't the lawsuit itself, it's OpenAI's permanent record.
That is the crucial takeaway for the market. Let's look at the calendar. OpenAI is actively targeting an initial public offering in the fourth quarter of 2026, and the valuation they are floating is $852 billion.
Nearing $1 trillion.
Exactly. And to justify an $852 billion valuation, you need an absolutely flawless corporate narrative. You have to convince the public and institutional investors that you are the responsible architects of the future economy. But when a company goes public, they are required by the SEC to file what's called an S-1 document. It is a massive, comprehensive disclosure of their business model, their leadership structure, and all of their risks. Every single investment bank and pension fund doing due diligence for this IPO is now going to read that highly polished S-1 document directly alongside the sworn public court transcripts from this trial.
And the contrast is going to be glaring. The S-1 will claim robust governance, while the court records detail a CEO allegedly withholding information, executives being pitted against each other, and safety teams being dissolved.
The trial might not destroy OpenAI in a legal sense. Musk might lose the lawsuit outright, but the move fast, change the world myth has been shattered. That sworn testimony is now a permanent public record. Right. When you are asking Wall Street for nearly $1 trillion, a legally documented history of deceit and chaos is a massive, tangible liability. You can't unring that bell.
So we have Microsoft bleeding institutional investors and their primary partner, OpenAI, bleeding public trust. And while the two giants, who essentially started this AI boom, are paralyzed by market rotations and courtroom drama, the rest of the industry is ruthlessly moving forward.
The market waits for no one.
Exactly. The digest highlights a few vital statistics in the ecosystem that show just how fast the gap is closing. Let's fire off some of these quick hits from Aaron Rose. First, Anthropic isn't just resting on this new Office integration. They are closing a $900 billion funding round.
Which is just an astronomical number.
Right. And on top of that war chest, they just launched 10 pre-built AI agent templates specifically designed for Wall Street. These agents do highly specialized tasks like know your customer screening and automatically generating financial pitch books.
It is a highly deliberate maneuver to capture the most lucrative sector of the economy. They're going straight for finance.
And on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, we have DeepSeek. Their V4 Pro and V4 Flash models are live, and they are claiming cost leadership at an astonishingly low $3.48 per million output tokens.
That's incredibly cheap.
Let's pause on tokens for a second, because the digest also mentions that GitHub Copilot is moving to token-based billing in just 24 days. This shift to tokens instead of flat fees is a massive paradigm change, isn't it?
It is the end of the software as a service era as we know it. A token is essentially the fundamental unit of computation for an AI. It's roughly equivalent to a piece of a word. For the last decade, businesses bought software by paying a flat monthly fee for a seat or a user license, regardless of how much that user actually used the software.
Right, the typical SaaS model.
Exactly. But token-based billing changes software from a flat subscription into a utility bill. You are paying for the exact amount of digital electricity you consume. So when DeepSeek drives the price down to $3.48 per million tokens, they are violently commoditizing the underlying intelligence.
So if we step back and look at these quick hits together, it's a brilliant strategic squeeze.
It is a textbook pincer movement. On the top end, you have Anthropic locking down the highly regulated, high-margin enterprise and finance sectors. They are providing bespoke, secure tools for Wall Street and embedding themselves seamlessly into the Microsoft Office suite.
They are taking the premium customers.
Yeah. And on the bottom end, DeepSeek is aggressively undercutting everyone on raw price, making the basic intelligence incredibly cheap. So Microsoft and OpenAI are being squeezed from the top by superior enterprise workflow integration and squeezed from the bottom by ruthless utility-style price competition. The entire ecosystem is capitalizing on the exact vulnerabilities we've discussed today.
So what does this all mean? If we pull all these threads together, the very fabric of how you work at your computer is being actively rewritten this week. The battle in tech isn't just about abstract AI models living in some distant cloud anymore.
Not at all.
It is about who controls the blank spreadsheet you open on Monday morning. It's about whether your workflow remains a series of isolated, frustrating tasks or becomes a continuous AI-assisted stream. And the smartest money in the financial world is placing multi-billion-dollar bets on who is going to win control of your desk.
And that brings up a really fascinating tension when we look at the human element of all this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because today we've essentially talked about two very distinct, very powerful types of memory. We discussed OpenAI's permanent public record, how every internal corporate decision, every hastily written email, every conflict is eventually immortalized for the world to see in a federal courtroom.
Right.
And on the flip side, we talked about Claude's new continuous AI presence, an assistant that follows your every single move across every application at work, never dropping context, never forgetting a single piece of data.
Two forms of perfect, unforgiving memory.
Exactly. So if we are rapidly moving into an era where an AI follows your work seamlessly without forgetting anything, and simultaneously we see how corporate histories are permanently publicly recorded,
Yeah.
how will this state of flawless, continuous digital memory change the way you actually behave at your desk?
That's a great question.
Will the knowledge that your AI assistant remembers everything make you infinitely more productive, or will it just make you deeply, fundamentally paranoid about every keystroke?
That is a wildly uncomfortable but absolutely necessary thought to end on. It's not just the software that's evolving, it's how we act when we know the software is always watching and always remembering. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the tools in front of you, keep learning, and we will catch you next time.